All right, we are back. First episode post Thanksgiving. Sergio Mora has made it to his home studio after what must have been a really fun travel day, going from the Texas area back to California. How was your Thanksgiving, Sergio, and how were the travels back to LA?
My Thanksgiving was wonderful. I was the only Mexican in a beautiful big home in Houston. My in-laws, they know how to do it right. My in-laws, how can I say it, are rich, successful, well-off, well-educated black people, Chris Mannix, and they know how to do it well. The Christmas, the Thanksgiving, the feast, beautiful, beautiful arrangement. Every year, I look forward to it. For the past 25 years, I've been doing it, Mannix, and it only gets bigger and grander. It's a big family, so we go to different parts of the country, and every which way it gets good. Now I know how you grew up, just
How I grew up?
silver spoons and
Okay.
and turkeys and ham, and it wasn't turkey tacos for me in East LA anymore. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I bet you missed the turkey tacos. Bet you missed the enchiladas. Bet you,
Absolutely
yeah.
not. No, I
No.
don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I don't miss. Look, I like them. I don't miss them. I actually like, switching up. I like going from tamales to collard greens. I'm fine with that.
I can see you being a big collard greens guy. I can see that.
How was your Thanksgiving, by the way, you pilgrim?
It was quiet. It was quiet.
Of
We're
course it was. You're
obviously on.
boring.
Well, yes, I am boring, but we're keeping it low key as we wait for the next couple of days to play out. Yeah, that was it. Had some good food. Had some ribs for Thanksgiving. That was a new experience. I like that. Tamales were served at the house, turkey, stuffing, all the traditional uh, foods here at the Mannix household, Sergio. Just not as exciting apparently as yours, but
I
still
bet you
pretty
you
good.
ate in plastic paper cups and
That's true. There were paper
yeah,
stuff served. Yeah.
you had a Mexican Thanksgiving. I've been there, done that, man. You gotta upgrade with some nice silverware. You got to get away from the paper cups and the plastic utensils. I've been there, done that, man. You're going backwards in life. You got to go back to your rich china in Boston.
Okay. If you think I didn't eat off paper plates in Boston for many
The,
years,
rich-
you're absolutely crazy.
you got to bring out the crystal, the silverware, the fancy plates under a chandelier. That's how you grew up. That's how you got to continue
That's
doing it.
exactly. Once again, you seem to have this vision of how I grew up, which is completely inaccurate. All right, we got a lot to get into on the show this week. We're going to talk about the fights we saw this past weekend. Ben Whittaker makes a pretty strong statement over in the UK. We've got a little bit more to talk about when it comes to the potential rematch of Canelo against Crawford. But Sergio, last week, because of our taping schedule, we didn't get to acknowledge the passing of Vanis the former junior middleweight contender. He passed away last week at the age of 39, had a short bout with skin cancer, and passes away last week. We've heard a lot of people talking about their memories of Vanis. I know you came up with him. You had a relationship with him for a number of years. What are your thoughts on the passing of Vanis?
Well, it was tragic. I had some Armenian friends of mine reach out, and they're the first ones that actually told me about him, that he wasn't doing too well, that he was in the hospital. So, I started looking into it, and then that's when social media started, talking about him, being in trouble and having this cancer, and ultimately it ended up taking his life. So it's terrible, man. I mean, it's something tragic because I knew Vanes since the amateur days. Vanes was an exceptional amateur. I'm talking about Roy Jones Jr., Nassim Hamed, hands down, knocking out guys with headgear. It was no surprise he made the Olympic team, but his life was cut too short, and it's just sad because he had a family, he had a beautiful kids, beautiful family, and it's tragic that he has to go out like that, man. Skin cancer and at his age, it's crazy, man. I don't even know. I'm lost for words, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's tough. Seen and read a lot of positive testimonials about Vanis Martirosyan, so we wish the best to his family as they deal with this tragedy over the holidays. All right, so let's start the show with the fight this past weekend over in the UK. Ben Whittaker the undefeated light heavyweight, former Olympic silver medalist. He, in his first fight of his Matchroom deal, gets a first-round knockout win over Benjamin Gavese. Now, you and I both acknowledged last week that this was not going to be a test for Ben Whittaker. Benjamin Gavese was a very average guy, had a glossy record, but no resume to speak of, had already been beaten at one point. So you knew it was going to end up positively for Ben Whittaker. This, though, was about as positive as you can get, to just blow through Gavese in your first fight with Matchroom, headlining your own event. A good showing in my eyes from Ben Whittaker. What did you think of the very short debut for Matchroom of Ben Whittaker?
You couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, it's not like he fought a tomato can with a losing record. Say what you want. I said Gavese was a fugazi. He's a fake diamond, but he had a 19-1 record. That's nothing to sneeze at. 19 wins, 1 loss. That looks incredible on a guy that only has less than a dozen fights. So for Ben Whittaker to make his debut with Matchroom Promotions, to make his debut or with Andy Lee in his corner, he passed every test. He went out there. He still performed like he likes to do, with his hands down, being the showman, but he did it responsibly. He had fast, sharp jabs. He was going around the guard with the right hooks. But ultimately, what was it? The body shot. I love seeing young fighters dig down to the body like that. He went down there, he dug to the body, just took one good shot down there to the liver, and you could see Gavese kind of like quiver away, and he didn't want no more of that, and that's when the show started. That's when Ben Whittaker just turned on the jets and went for the kill. I love seeing that in young fighters. I love seeing the fact that they have killer instinct. So the fact that he has the talent, the backing, the trainer, the speed, the power, the looks, and he has the killer instinct, passed every which way you could think of. A+. He passed his test on the big stage, and I want to see more of him.
Yeah, Andy Lee said after the fight that this kid's got all the tools, and you can clearly see it. Like, he's got the hand speed, he's got the skill set. You saw that in the Olympics when he won the silver medal back in 2020. He just has all the physical tools you want. He's obviously got the charisma to be a star, headlining in just his 11th pro fight. He's headlined, of course, earlier than that as well. But to come back, first fight with Matchroom as a headliner, that's a big thing. And look, even though, like, I think with Matchroom, and I've heard some people with them say something to this effect, Matchroom is looking at this relationship as kind of a reset of Ben Whittaker. Yes, he had the 10 pro fights coming in, had the draw against Liam Cameron, avenged that loss when he was working with Ben Shalom, but they're looking at this as kind of a new beginning here. And that's why they matched him with somebody as soft as Gavese, and that's why they will continue to match him with softer fighters in the first half of 2026. I mean, the goal for Ben Whittaker, for Matchroom, is to just be active. And I agree with that. I think that's the way to go. I mean, I was getting some text, Sergio, after the Whittaker fight from some people in boxing that were rolling their eyes at Ben Whittaker fighting this kind of opponent, pointing out that Ben Whittaker is 28 years old. So, I mean, he is, as a professional, a novice, but chronologically, he's right around the same age as David Benavidez. So, people kind of scoffing at Ben Whittaker fighting this level of opponent. But for me, I don't think you could look at his age. I think you have to look at where he is as a boxer. And as a boxer, he's not there at the level where he should be talking about fighting the Benavidezes or the Bivol or the Beterbievs or any of the top tier guys. I thought what Eddie Hearn said after the fight was dead on. Like, you want to get Ben Whittaker to a Dan Aziz. You want to get him to a Joshua Buatsi. You want to get him to a Craig Richards. You want to get him to one of these domestic guys who are going to prove to be reasonable challenges. And if he looks as impressive against them as he did in this fight with the last opponent, Gavese, then you can start talking about moving up to the world level in 2027.
Yeah, and that's where matchmaking comes in. That's where a great promoter comes in, and that's what they're going to do with him. They're not going to rush him because he has star potential. As far as the age goes, he's 28 years old. Yeah, but he's also an Olympian, so he gets to get to the front of the line faster. He's going to get to a world title faster than most people because he's talented. He has the backing. He has the skill with that long amateur pedigree. I just wanted to see him develop the jab and develop body shots. In our last pod, I told you, what do I need to see from Ben Whittaker? I told you, body work. and I got to see it. That's how he got the knockout. I mean, yeah, sure, it was a right hook in the end, winging away for the fences. Once he was hurt to the body, once Gavese got touched to the liver, he didn't want no more of that. And that's how it's going to be as he continues fighting the guys with more experience that are more weathered and the boxers that all the people that you were talking about that didn't like this performance, they want to see him against. And to those haters, the people that were texting you, stop. Gavese, yeah, he wasn't a world beater, but he was 19 wins, one loss. What the hell do you want from him? This is a kid with less than a dozen fights. There's not that many fighters that are now champions that have fought in their dozen fight against a guy that's 19 and 1. So you got to give him some credit.
Well,
Yes,
look,
he was.
I agree with you. I pointed out to these people that if you go back and look at the resumes of all the guys that you're talking about, the Benavidez's, the Terrence Crawfords, the top tier guys, look at who they were fighting in their 10th, 11th, and 12th pro fight. You and I have some fun with this all the time, but it's usually about Jake Paul. But like when you're a young fighter coming up the ranks, you're not fighting world beaters. So Benjamin Gavese at 19 and 1, perfectly reasonable for his 11th pro fight.
Absolutely. And when I was about a dozen fights, I had my first big undefeated opponent on national television. I believe he was 13 and 0, Les Ralston. I fought on NBC. And I was 11 and 0. We got the big opportunity. We got the big NBC date, and we had to fight someone that had something to lose like you did. It looks good on your resume. So 19 and 1. I don't care if Gavese didn't beat anybody. He still beat 19 fighters out of 20. That right there said he was a winner. He wasn't accustomed to losing. He wasn't getting knocked out. And guess what? He got knocked out in under 3 minutes by Ben Whittaker. He passed every test you can possibly think of. So on to the next fight, on to the next performance. And this is exactly how you're going to turn this guy into a star. The surgeon, Ben Whittaker, will be a star because he has everything you want to maximize the potential of a future champion and a future ticket seller. That kid has it all.
February, May, September, December. Those should be the dates that Ben Whittaker is looking at in 2026. Forget the opponents for right now, though you do want to gradually improve them. You got to get him out there, keep him active, keep him busy, keep him on people's radar. That's to me the strategy, or at least it should be, with Ben Whittaker. All right. Also in the UK, we had Frazer Clarke returning to the ring. Frazer Clarke, of course, had fought those two good fights. Well, one was a good fight against Fabio Wardley, got knocked out in the first round of the rematch against Wardley. He fights for a domestic title against Jamie TKV over in the UK. This was a fight that I thought Clarke was, at his best, was probably going to go through pretty easily. I thought he'd win convincingly. Instead, he's life and death. He looked out of it in the 11th round and winds up losing a split decision. Sergio, I watched this fight. I'm looking at Frazer Clarke and I'm going, man, you get your face literally caved in against Fabio Wardley in the rematch. You look this bad against a very, very domestic level guy. You're 34 years old. I know he doesn't have a lot of professional fights, spent a lot of time in the amateurs, but if I'm Frazer Clarke, I'm calling it a day. I don't think this is not a guy that I think is going to recover to get back to any kind of even high level domestic level over in the UK. I think that we should have seen the end of Frazer Clarke. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all the signs are pointing in that direction. I mean, he had his face caved in against Wardley in one of the most grotesque type ways and knockouts. And then he's 1-2-1 in his last 4 fights, and he's 34 years old. I mean, how much more writing do you want on the wall? Read those tea leaves, like they like to say. That, yeah, the end should be near because he's just going to be an opponent. He's going to be cannon fodder, like you like to say, for up-and-coming fighters, and he's only going to get more damage. So, yeah, it didn't align for Clarke because it wasn't in his cards. He wasn't that good. If you're getting beat down and knocked out in under a dozen fights, you weren't meant for boxing. You're meant for something else. So, yeah, he should call it a day. The people that are actually looking out for his career, the people that really have his ear, his managers and trainers and friends and family, should tell him, hey, man, this isn't for you. You're still young enough to do something else. So at 34 years old, I hope this is the end of Frazer Clarke. I don't want to see him get the other side of his face dented in.
Yeah. That first fight against Wardley kind of made me believe there might be something more to him. But watching the rematch against Wardley, watching this fight against Jamie TKV. Didn't see it. Just didn't
I mean,
see
look,
it. He's about 270 pounds. Like, he's a big
he had the
guy.
size. He had the size. He's one of these big 6'6", 200+ pound
70.
heavy.
He was, I think, around 270 for this fight.
Yeah, no, he's a big man. So he fits all the numbers, but he just doesn't fit the skill. He had some pretty good skill. Let me take that back. He has skill. He just doesn't have the luck. He just doesn't have the luck, and he doesn't have it. It, like my trainer used to say. Some guys just have it, and some guys don't. Frazer Clarke has none of it. He should consider another career while he's still young enough to do it, because boxing's not it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Frazer Clarke, he was a very good amateur. As I said, like, he won, I'm looking at now, the 2017 European Championships. He was gold at the 2018 Commonwealth Games, bronze at the 2020 Olympics. So he put together a nice amateur career. I just haven't seen it in the pro ranks. And when you're not able to beat someone on the level of Jamie TKV, and I saw Ben Shalom at Boxer after the fight really start to pump up Jamie TKV, said he was the best inside heavyweight he's ever seen. I can probably name a few others that are better on the inside than Jamie TKV. But if you're not able to put a guy like that away, you're not going to compete with even the domestic level heavyweights that are out there. You're probably going to get hurt when you start stepping up to a higher level. So I'm of the belief, too, that Frazer Clarke should call it a day. All right. We talked last week about Canelo Alvarez, and Canelo told TV Azteca last week that he is targeting a rematch with Terence Crawford. We have not yet heard from Terence Crawford and what his plans for 2026 are at present. But we have heard some rumblings, mostly on social media, about what it will take for Terence Crawford to get back in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. A friend of Crawford's suggested that it would take $100 million. I feel like I'm watching Austin Powers. $1 billion to get back into the ring. Maybe that's just gamesmanship. Maybe that's just rhetoric. Certainly Crawford would want an increase on the payday he got last time to fight Canelo. But when I heard that, Sergio, I started to think, like, Canelo gave Crawford a pretty big opportunity. Like, yes, Canelo got paid for it, more than Crawford. The multi-fight deal that Canelo has with Turki Al-Sheikh, just the 2 fights, well over $100 million he was paid for those 2 fights. So he got compensated properly for the Crawford fight. But he did give Crawford the opportunity. If Canelo didn't say yes to Crawford, I don't know where Crawford would have gone. He could have fought a big fight at 154, but it would have been for a fraction of the money and a fraction of the notoriety, of the the hardware, certainly, that he could have accomplished fighting at 168. I'm of the opinion that Terence Crawford owes Canelo Alvarez a rematch. He should get paid for it, but if Canelo wants to run it back, I think Terence Crawford has the obligation to do it. What do you think?
Hell no. Bud doesn't own nothing to nobody. He doesn't own anybody anything. No promoter, no fighter, anybody. Bud Crawford did it the Marvin Hagler route. He did it the way that he didn't have the golden road. He had to beat guys after guy after guy, in their own hometown. He beat champion. He was always the underdog. Bud Crawford, nobody knew what Bud Crawford was doing up until 3 years ago, when he finally got the big opportunity on the mega stage with Errol Spence. And that was just 3 fights ago, Mannix. 3 fights ago. This man's 38 years old right now. So at 35 years old, he finally shined. No, if I was Bud Crawford, the money that he made and the way that he went out, becoming 3-time undisputed, beating the top dog, the big Mexican honcho at 168. I'm not saying he should call it a career, but no, he doesn't owe him no favors. He doesn't owe him no rematch. So what? That's the way this business is. For a long time, Bud Crawford, no one was calling his name. Now, the number 1 pound for pound, pay-per-view pound for pound guy in Canelo needs him. No. This is where Bud needs to actually start thinking, I already accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish, plus more. I got all the money in the world. I can go buy acres of land in Nebraska. I can go befriend Warren Buffett, learning how to do other things with my money and my time. At 38 years old, Bud Crawford is smart enough, because I met the man plenty of times, to do a lot of things and be great at. That boxing was just in the past now. I'm not saying he should retire, but he doesn't own Canelo a rematch. He doesn't owe anybody in boxing nothing.
Just an aside. This is now the second time in about 10 days I have heard someone improperly invoke the name of Marvin Hagler. And as a Bostonian, I have to ask you to please stop. Malik Scott over in Saudi Arabia compared Brian Norman to Marvin Hagler. That needs to stop. You just talked about the paths that Marvin Hagler and Terrence Crawford walked. Stop with that too. Look, Terrence Crawford did not get the breaks that someone like Errol Spence got. But let's not act like Terrence Crawford didn't have some big-time backing for the majority of his career. Terrence Crawford was promoted by Top Rank, the #1 promoter in boxing for most of his career. Terrence Crawford was fighting on HBO. Terrence Crawford was fighting on ESPN. What Terrence Crawford didn't get were those opportunities at welterweight. Errol Spence, because of the politics, because all the welterweights were aligned with PBC, he got to fight Sean Porter. He got to fight the top guys, Danny Garcia. He got to fight all these names at 147 while Crawford was stuck fighting guys that were well past their prime or guys that were never really had much of a prime. So just please, no more Marvin Hagler references. I can't take it.
You please, just because you're from Massachusetts. Hagler wasn't from Boston, so get that out of your mouth.
Brockton. He was from Brockton. Right? You couldn't pick Brockton on a map, Sergio. Stop.
Okay, I don't care, but he wasn't from Boston where you softies are. He's no Bostonian. This man was cut from a different...
far Brockton? Brockton is like half an hour from the city proper. What are you talking about?
Hey, he's far away from the rich
he's
part
not
of town
far
living,
away.
Right? The reason I say Marvin Hagler route is because he... Put it this way. When Sugar Ray Leonard made his pro debut as the Olympic darling, the next star, guess who was on his undercard as a world champion? Marvin Hagler. A world champion on the undercard of a guy making his professional debut. That is...
We agree on that. We agree on how Hagler
That's the
came
Marvin
up.
Hagler route, man. That's what I'm telling you.
When did Crawford as a world champion appear on an undercard?
All I'm saying is he didn't get the respect until he had 50, 60 fights, until he didn't get the respect until the end. And what happened in the end? He thinks he got robbed and never boxed against Sugar Ray Leonard. He just became insulted, being bitter, and he just disappeared and made Italian movies. Good for Marvin Hagler, by the way. But that's Terrence Crawford, man. He's cut from that cloth. So I'm gonna say it again. Bud Crawford is not only as talented, as great, as undisputed, as incredible as the accolades of Marvin Hagler, but he did it his own way, without the opportunities, without the mega paydays. Yes, he fought on HBO and ESPN, and he had a promoter, but he wasn't the A side. He was never the A side in those big fights. He wasn't getting those $5 million paydays. He wasn't getting those $10 million paydays, not alone 50 and 60. Now he hit the gold mine. Now he's in the driver's seat, and now it's the A sides that need him. This is where he needs to be at 38 years old, saying, nah, I've been there, done that. I'm going to go start making Italian movies.
You want Terrence Crawford to go? He's traveling Europe these days.
He do whatever he wants, baby. Crawford's that great.
To bring it back to the point, look, if Crawford wants to retire, by all means, I think he has proven everything he needs to prove. Like going down to 160 and fighting the winner of Janabek Lara is not going to burnish the resume of Terrence Crawford. Maybe literally it will, but it's not going to make people think of him any differently. They're still going to look at him as the all-time great of this era. He is one of the all-time greats, and certainly the all-time great of the era that he's now competing in. But if he decides to fight again, I don't want to see him challenge one of the guys that Canelo has already gone through at 168. I don't really care about him going down to 160 and fighting another middleweight. I just think because Canelo gave him this opportunity, and he gave it to him. Canelo didn't have to do this. Look, Canelo certainly saw the opportunity, and I think he realized very quickly that Terrence Crawford was a lot better than he expected him to be going in. But Canelo did give him this opportunity. Canelo could have, and you know this, when Canelo fights, it's a big payday for him no matter who he's fighting. Canelo could have fought anyone in and around 168 and gotten a huge payday out of it, either in Saudi Arabia or over here in the U.S. He gave the opportunity to Crawford. I think Crawford, if Canelo is serious, if he wants to do it, if the money is there, and I think it will be, I think he has, if he's going to fight again, and Canelo wants to be that fight, I think he has a duty to fight Canelo Alvarez.
I don't, but that's up to Bud Crawford. Ultimately, that man's motivated by by challenges. He's motivated by great challenges, and there was no greater challenge than Canelo on a Mexican holiday in front of 50, 60,000 people in a football stadium. Do you really think he's going to have that exact same challenge the second time around, have that exact same fear, that exact same hunger, motivation, need? It doesn't work that way. You can't continue reproducing that hunger. Believe me, I don't care how great you are. You take it for granted once you did it once. You can only strike gold like that once in a while. And I think Bud Crawford has struck it over and over and over. But against Canelo Alvarez, this is the way you go out, man. And I think he's cut from that Andre Ward cloth, from that Floyd Mayweather Jr. cloth.
Yeah, but
they're willing to go out on top.
I don't, because when I talk to people in Crawford's camp, the word retirement never comes up. Like, I reported this last month when Jake Paul's team approached Crawford in, I think it was Colombia, where the WBO convention was taking place, and asked him about this fight. Crawford said no. It wasn't because Crawford didn't want to fight. It was because Crawford, from what I'm told, has a March date planned. He's going to fight at some point in March. Now, that's not going to be Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is still recovering from this elbow surgery. So if he does go out in March, he's going to fight somebody else. So it doesn't sound like Crawford, based on everything I'm hearing and everything he's saying, is looking at retirement. And why would he, Sergio? He's 38 years old, but he is number one pound for pound. And there is a pile of money out there for him to be paid. Now, where you and I agree on the, a little bit off base Hagler comp is that, yeah, he didn't make a lot of money early in his career. Made good money, 7 figures, and that goes a long way in Omaha, Nebraska. But now is the time for him to cash in and collect those 30, 40, 50, $60 million checks. He's probably going to get one if he fights in March. And if he fights Canelo Alvarez, what's that worth to him? 50 million? 60 million? 70 million? I don't know. I don't know what that number is, but he's not going to quit. I think if he's going to keep going, Canelo's got to be on that list. He's got to be.
All right. And look, and I'm fine with that, but just don't make it seem like he's obligated. And those words that you used, to say that he was forced. He's pretty much he's obligated and forced and has to give Canelo the rematch.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
And you're making it seem like he's indebted. He's not indebted. That's a great fighter that waited in the wing, waited for his opportunity, cashed this opportunity. Now he has the leverage on his side. So there's no favors being done here. It just he capitalized and now he's on top.
Well, I'd argue that it's not like he's doing him a favor. He's going to get paid well if he goes ahead and fights Canelo Alvarez again. Let me ask you this, though, and I'll put it in the context of your career. You had to fight Vernon Forrest in a rematch. You were mandatory. You were obligated contractually to go ahead and do it. Vernon Forrest didn't have to fight you the first time, right? Like, you weren't a mandatory challenger to Vernon Forrest. He gave you that opportunity. Had you not been forced to fight him, if Forrest came to you and said, maybe a couple months later, I'd say maybe a couple months later for you, but said to you like, hey, how about in 3 or 4 months, you give me my rematch? What would you have said?
No, because Oscar De La Hoya was around the corner, and I was just close to maybe getting that Oscar De La Hoya fight in the big payday. And Vernon wanted that Oscar De La Hoya fight for a long time as well. So, yeah. No, I wouldn't have. I would have gone for the big money, the huge money.
Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't make sense then. Because, like, Canelo is still, like, we can argue the obligation part of it, but Canelo is still the biggest payday Terence Crawford can get. No question. Full stop. Whether it's in Riyadh, U.S., a Riyadh season event, a traditional pay-per-view, there is nobody out there at 168 on down that Canelo Alvarez can fight that would do bigger numbers, or that Terence Crawford could fight that would do bigger numbers than Canelo Alvarez. So maybe we're just, and look, again, this all came from a friend of Canelo Alvarez who put the $100 million number out there. That could be just a little bit of gamesmanship on the part of Team Crawford as we head towards negotiating season for his next fight. All right, let's talk about Jake Paul for a second. We touched on him a moment ago.
Of course, why not? Go from Canelo and Bud Crawford to Jake
I know. We are just.
Go ahead, Mannix. Go ahead, you pilgrim.
We are just weeks away from the Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua event over down in Miami. Heavyweight fight, 245-pound catch weight, 8 rounds, traditional 10-ounce boxing gloves. And Jake Paul is back in camp, Sergio, posting a picture on social media of him working out down in Puerto Rico, accompanied by some pretty interesting heavyweights. Jared Anderson was down there. Frank Sanchez was down there. Lawrence Okoli was down there. I'd imagine before December 19th that a couple of more big-name heavyweights are probably going to be down there. sparring with him. What do you think of Jake Paul going deep into the well of some name heavyweights? You think it's going to make any difference when he fights Anthony Joshua?
It'll make a difference. Not much, but it'll make a difference. And I continue saying this for years now. It seems like we've been talking about Jake Paul for years now. He has the resources to advance faster than most. If I could never get that quality sparring back in the day because I wasn't paying top dollar. I don't think no champion that was not a star was getting that quality sparring. To have those names for a championship level fight, Jake Paul has to be shelling out some big money. Not only that, but big transportation, big money in lodging, in food and travel and all that, and equipment and all that. He has the resources to do it. So congratulations to Jake Paul. He can advance faster than most. But yeah, look, you asked me the question, is it going to make a difference? Yes, it is. It's going to make a difference not only in his confidence, but in his technique. He's going to get hit by legitimate, high-level fighters. And he's gonna get he's gonna get better. There's no way he goes against those names and spars and doesn't learn right off the bat. So yeah, he's gonna be ready for Anthony Joshua. He's not gonna compete. He's not gonna get close to beating him, but he might be able to take some punishment better than he did if he didn't have this championship level sparring. He'll be able to roll with the shots a little bit more, maybe have a better game plan, maybe. Maybe. But it's a good look for him to be sparring great sparring partners like the names you just mentioned.
I love that Jake Paul spent the last 2 months with guys like Shakur Stevenson in his training camp getting ready for Gervonta Davis. Now he's pivoting to top level, top 10-ish, top 15-ish type heavyweights to prepare for Anthony Joshua. It still is pretty wild that that's happening. I agree with you. It makes a difference. Will it make a difference in the second or third round of a fight against Anthony Joshua? Probably not. But I think getting hit on the chin by somebody that can crack like Jared Anderson, fighting someone like Lawrence Okoli, who has kind of the physical dimensions of Anthony Joshua, probably fights a little bit of a similar style as Anthony Joshua, is helpful. Someone as crafty as Frank Sanchez in the ring. I don't expect AJ to be crafty against Jake Paul, but someone like that can certainly make you better. It's the iron sharpens iron type of thing. In 3 weeks, how much better will it get him? I don't know, but he's doing the right things headed to this camp. But something interesting that
he's not going to get better, Mannix. He's not going to get. It's not going to be iron sharpens iron because he's not even iron. This guy's platinum being sharpened by iron. But what it is going to do is he's going to be able to absorb punches better. So when he gets hit, I'll tell you how this fight ends. He's not going to get hit clean. Anthony Joshua's going to ricochet a punch off the glove or off the head. Jake Paul's going to be, tightening up really tight to not get it with nothing big. And that's how the fight's going to go down. He's going to knock him out in that fashion. He's not going to get hit with a mega shot that's going to be damaged, that's going to, impair his health. This fight's going to end with him shelling up and being beaten from pillar to post until they stop the fight, or he takes a knee, or he ultimately gets knocked out like that. But I don't think he gets hit with a clean, a dangerous shot. And that's why I think these sparring partners are going to prepare him for that, because he's going to get hit with clean shots in sparring, but with oversized gloves and headgear. So when he gets in the ring with 10-ounce gloves with a gigantic former champion, he's going to be able to absorb the shot and still try to engage, but get knocked out absorbing shots with his hands covered. That's how I think the fight ends.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Nikisa Badarian, the manager for Jake Paul, has been active on social media over the last couple of weeks, pushing back on this narrative that this fight is an abomination. This fight should not be made. This is too big a mismatch to make in a professional fight. I thought he's made some decent points, Sergio, points that I've tried to make on this show. Nikisa, yes. That people have said this about the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua fight. And I thought he made some good points that I have been trying to make to you right here on this podcast, specifically that we have seen bigger mismatches. We have, like the Benjamin Gavezi-Ben Whittaker fight. Ben Whittaker was, I believe, a 13-1 favorite, going into that fight. Undercard fights, prelim fights, huge underdogs. Jake Paul, as we record this, is around an 8-1 underdog against Anthony Joshua. You can certainly argue, and I would, that those odds they should be a lot higher. But, on paper, the Vegas odds makers are making Jake Paul less of an underdog, then they make a lot of big fights. We've seen fights, Sergio, where guys are like 30-1 underdogs, 40-1 underdogs, massive prelim fights. Do you think that's a fair take from Nikisa, that there are a lot of other fights out there, some big name fights, some headlining fights that are bigger mismatches than AJ against Paul?
No, Nikisa and Jake Paul are new to this game. They got a couple years under their belt. They can't speak like they know what they're talking about. Why don't you ask, the Bob Arums of the world, the Oscar De La Hoyas, the people that are lifers in this game, and ask them the opinion of what they feel about this. This is a charade and a sideshow and a circus, and everyone in this game will tell you the same. But since that's what sells now, that's what actually gets, Netflix to be on board and the big money and the big sponsors to be on board. If that's what it takes for boxing to get, that kind of attention, then yeah, so be it. It's fine. But Jake Paul doesn't belong in the same conversation with any kind of former champion. But, he just happens to get the right ones at the right time. And because of that, there's intrigue. He stands no chance against AJ, but he's going to get paid for his damage and his time. And as far as the mismatches go, this is one of the biggest mismatches you could possibly make in boxing, because this was a guy that was in YouTube videos and a Disney star when Anthony Joshua was winning gold medals. So what are we talking about here? Two different lifestyles.
But we're talking about actual odds. And one thing Nikisa pointed out, which I didn't realize at the time, was that William School was a bigger underdog against Canelo Alvarez than Jake Paul is against Anthony Joshua. Like, what can you say to that? Like, that's a fact. Like, these are numerical facts. Like, odds makers thought or think that Jake Paul has a better chance of beating Anthony Joshua than William School did Canelo Alvarez.
Well, but those are just numbers and people in I don't know. Look, the odds can change the day of the fight. So for right now, that's not fooling me and that's not telling me anything. Jake Paul is a strong, athletic guy with a wrestling background. This guy's an athletic, strong guy, like I said, that has the resources to train and put his body in peak position to not get hurt. I could see him maybe going, 2-3 rounds with Anthony Joshua, but if AJ really wants to hurt this guy, this fight shouldn't last more than 3 minutes. It shouldn't get past the first round. I'll be honest with you. But if he wants to put on a show and wants to kind of go some rounds and make it more of an event, I could see AJ, toying with him a little bit. But Jake Paul shouldn't stand the chance in this fight. It should be beaten down into submission in the first round.
Look, I agree that that's the most likely outcome, especially if Anthony Joshua comes out with the same mindset he did against Francis Ngannou. An overmatched opponent, somebody that's not in his league. He went out and took care of business inside 2 rounds. I think it gets a little bit interesting if we get to the 3rd and 4th round. I'll just say that. I think then the pressure shifts entirely to Anthony Joshua and certainly less off Jake Paul. All right, last thing for you. We did discuss last week, the big fight that is looming out there between Zurdo-Ramirez and David Benavidez. That fight is being penciled in for Cinco de Mayo weekend in Las Vegas for Zurdo-Ramirez's 2 cruiserweight titles. But that is not going to be the first fight for Zurdo in 2026. His first fight is likely going to be a matchup against Robin Safar, the undefeated cruiserweight, who is going to be the shake off the rust, get back from injury opponent for Zurdo-Ramirez. Now, this, Sergio, is not just some stumble bum that Zurdo is going up against. Robin Safar is undefeated. He's 19-0. He's got 13 knockouts on his resume. He beat Sergey Kovalev a few fights ago, and he has been considered at different times a player in the cruiserweight division. Do you think it's possible that Robin Safar can shake this whole thing up, can screw everything up, beat Zurdo-Ramirez, and kill a David Benavidez fight?
No, I've been disappointed with Robin Safar the last 2 performances. It seems like he's missing a gear. I think I've said that in telecast, but if you really break down the numbers, he's had a late start. He comes from a area in the world where boxing is not prominent. And yeah, he had that win against Kovalev, but it was a very faded version of Kovalev, and he got him at the right time, and he was old and he was a has-been pretty much. Safar, it seems like he has the tools. I don't know if he needs motivation. He needs a new trainer. He needs something. He's lacking something. So I don't think that Zurdo's going to have any issues with him. He can keep him at the end of the jab. He doesn't have to engage. Safar doesn't really know how to break the distance and be explosive. Safar is pretty much a calculated risk that looks good on paper because he's undefeated. He has the looks. He's a muscular fighter. He has a good knockout ratio, but he doesn't fight with those numbers. He doesn't fight like he has a good knockout ratio. He's not explosive. He takes his time. He kind of plays with his food. He has a slow feet. So I think it's gonna be pretty easy, and I think Zurdo will be a easy favorite in this fight, just to keep him at the end of the jab, not even go for the knockout, just cruising to the decision because Safar doesn't do nothing towards the end of the round. He's comfortable just barely staying in the fight, even in fights that he's maybe behind on points. So because of that, I think Zurdo is gonna be fine.
Yeah, if this fight was made after the Sergey Kovalev fight, I might think differently because that Kovalev win was impressive. It was the tail end of Sergey Kovalev, no doubt about that. But, battering Kovalev to the point of stopping him late in that 10th round was an eyebrow-raising moment. That was like, okay, maybe Robin Safar is the real deal. That's why Golden Boy signed him. It's why they have been trying to put him on this path for a fight against Zurdo Ramirez. But his 2 fights with Golden Boy have been so unimpressive. He got to knock out the first fight. That was down a fight that you worked down in Cancun. Didn't look great against a lower level guy there. Blamed it on injury when we talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Said he had surgery, he's ready to come back. And he, going into that fight against Derek Miller Jr. in November, he was saying, this is going to be my true Golden Boy debut. This is going to be where you see how good Robin Safar was. He was predicting an A-level performance, and we got a C, C-minus level performance. Derek Miller Jr. is an 8-round club fighter. He is. That's just what he is. He is a Motor City club fighter. And really from the second round on, he looked dead on his feet against Robin Safar, and Robin Safar couldn't get him out of there. Knowing that you had to look good to get the big fights you were looking for. And ultimately he got it, so what do I know, I guess. But, in the immediate aftermath of that fight, my first thought was wow, he just blew it. He blew his chance at getting a fight against Zurdo Ramirez because he didn't look good in that fight.
Yeah, but the only reason he got this fight is because he didn't look good.
Exactly. So I think it went the other way. It went the complete other way. It was wow, he's really average.
Like we expected him to look, he wouldn't get this opportunity at a big fight against a big name for a world title. So maybe sometimes it's good to be vulnerable. Sometimes it's good to actually not to have the best performance against an opponent, because then you get someone else that's a champion looking your way, thinking that they're going to be an easy fight, and you could shock the world. So maybe,
but he wasn't thinking that coming in. He wasn't thinking that coming in though, Sergio. He was thinking I got to look great. I'm going to look great. And Derek Miller Jr. was right there for him to look great. He couldn't do it. He couldn't pull the trigger on any of his punches, and that told me that there is a pretty low ceiling on Robin Safar. I agree with you. I think the footwork of Ramirez is going to give Safar problems. I think the output of Ramirez is going to give him problems. I think it could be an entertaining fight. I think both those guys will probably want to keep the fight in the middle of the ring, probably try to make it a fight in a phone booth for long stretches. But this is not a fight that I think is a real threat to Zurdo Ramirez, unless his injury is more serious than we thought. He's not ready, rusty, coming back. I don't know. I think it's going to take something pretty big from Zurdo for Robin Safar to beat him in January. All right. Well, Sergio, enjoy being back in California. I know you'll miss all that Thanksgiving food so much. I'm going to eat my leftovers of ribs and meatballs and all the good things I've got in my fridge.
How far you have fallen from your silver spoon to plastic spoons in East LA. Chris Mannix, I'm disappointed, Pilgrim.
Why don't you go compare somebody else to Marvin Hagler?
Me.